everybody. We're doing a little chat today with Tori Cummings, talking about how 2020 changed everything for us and what it might look like for our future. And we probably won't be talking about some of the mainstream things that people would expect us to when we talk about 2020 changing things. I will say, first and foremost, that Tori is just a phenomenal human being, an incredible soul, a generous soul. And she does everything under the sun, but she is a holistic health practitioner and coach, and she offers donation-based yoga online. She has a whole store of health and body products, all handcrafted, sort of homegrown, as I like to call it, herbal products and so much more. I know she offers Reiki. She offers trainings on Reiki. She just does it all. So that's who we'll be having on today. And I thought it would be perfect to talk to her, of all people, about power back to the people, or power to the people. You know, when it came to 2020 and all the shifts that were underway, there was so much that I feel like was supporting us to shift into personal responsibilities for our lives, for our health, for our local communities, for our food, and so much more. So we're going to touch on that. We're going to let it be casual. We're going to go with the flow. That's what it's all about, right? Just sharing our heart, sharing our message, whatever even that is, just being ourselves and hoping that it lands, that it helps somebody. So yay, I already did your introduction. I was talking about what a phenomenal human being you are and all the wonderful things that you do and your store and your shop. And it's all there. People can check out the details. And but first and foremost, of course, you're my soul sister and friend. And but we love you and we're happy to have you.
Thank you for having me, and it's an honor and pleasure to be here.
What really inspired this talk and why I thought of you was because I was actually driving around in my car and I was thinking of how 2020, has shifted things. And I think maybe the mass majority of people would say that it maybe changed things for the worse, or that they would, assume that it's changed things in a way that they have to live in fear, stuff like that. But how I've seen it is more like we are being offered this opportunity to shift into personal responsibility for our health, for supporting each other, for maybe creating an economy that looks a little bit different, where we're all supporting our community, local businesses, each other, as opposed to these big corporations like Amazon and Jeff Bezos, who made more money than they ever have in 2020. So I was like, I just want to have a conversation, see where it flows. And I thought that you would be the perfect person to chat with, knowing that you have a business that you serve local people with. You also have an online business, and that you focus so much on health and taking control of our health. So I just thought that, this could be a good chat for us to have.
Awesome. All in all, I think you're absolutely right. I think a lot of people looked at this year as a time that, was very fear-inducing and created a lot of scarcity mindset and made us more aware of that in some ways. But you're absolutely right. It is time as the collective consciousness to move back into owning our health and feeling empowered and knowing how to care for ourselves deeply. So I'm honored to be here with you today and discuss this, as this is literally the juiciest content that I would be able to connect with you on. So I'm so excited.
Excellent. Gosh, I just love that. Well, and I was thinking too how, for so long we've relied on, we'll say, big pharma or, the medical industry to ensure our health. We kind of we put our responsibility on somebody else, hoping that they would give us the answers. And I think 2020 opened that door to say, this might not always be an option, or this might not always be available. And who knows what the future holds. And it's not like you have to live in fear, but it's actually, to me, it was inspiring to be like, okay, what can I learn so that at home I'm able to support myself, my son, through basic stuff. Clearly if someone gets in a car accident, I'm heading over to the ER, all right? But when it comes to everyday stuff or colds and flus and all the other things, I won't be using any keywords today, don't want to get banned, but which is an interesting era to live in, by the way, that we would have to censor ourselves in any regard. However, I won't touch too much on that, except to say I felt like we were shifting from sort of big pharma to personal health, from government to personal sovereignty and freedom, big corporations to local community, local business. And I feel like that's the invitation that's happening. I don't know that everyone's picking up on it yet, or that we are all sort of actively engaged with that in a conscious way. but I feel like that's the opportunity that opened up in 2020.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're right in the lines of some people have tapped into that. But there are, still people trying to figure it out. And in my work, I've recognized that there are so many more people taking personal responsibility for their health this year and actually, deciding to work in holistic ways for chronic illnesses like multiple sclerosis, fibromyalgia, and other chronic pain issues. I've had so many more people coming in and trying, for example, Reiki or yoga or Thai body work for the first time ever. And it's really interesting just how much this year has been a catalyst for people to kind of reclaim their health. And I love that because that is my main mission, is to help reclaim people's health naturally, as well as empower people just in their journeys. So it's been an interesting year of connecting with like these people that are newly on the path, and helping guide them in the ways of natural health. I don't know if that's a key word, but I'll try to keep it on the DL.
I got you. I got you. Yeah, and you know what? I love hearing that. That's very reassuring that people have, like you said, sort of picked up on that, picked up on the opportunity to explore these alternative methods or try something new or whatever. Because I saw so much of the, I guess the other, not, I mean, I have an incredible community. I have to be honest. People talk a lot of trash about Facebook and stuff, and generally, I have an incredible community of like-minded, like-hearted souls. So I do want to put that out there. That's primarily who I see, okay? But I did hear about, and I knew about, and I kind of saw a little bit of people more so, getting scared that, they wouldn't be able to, access what they needed to access or take care of what they needed to take care of. And I feel like there's this ongoing, maybe, even if it isn't a conscious fear, I do feel like there's like a little bit of an undercurrent of like a subconscious fear generally across humanity of, especially those who have kind of awakened, of maybe earth changes, or is the economy failing or falling apart or collapsing, and what happens after that? And, what if we don't have this system to uphold our lives and our livelihoods? Then what? But hello, that's what this year is all about. We're supposed to be moving into this so that if shit does collapse, we're doing the new thing with the new, maybe it's not, fully built or developed, but the new economy or the new way of supporting each other or the new wave of health. And again, I sure hope we always have an ER to go to. I'm not gonna go ahead and say I'd like to be dealing with, I don't know, the events that they had to deal with, like in, war in the 1800s. No, thank you. With that said, I feel like there's such an opportunity here for actually self-growth, again, that personal sovereignty, taking back our health. And that's one of the messages too, is, we don't have to be scared. No matter what happens, even if the economy were to fall apart, even if the government were to who knows what, I mean, everyone has a different opinion as to what's going on and what's going to happen. And even with all of that, at the end of the day, what I think the opportunity was, even now, is to, okay, let's just say all of that were to happen. So now what? We start growing our own food. Learn it. If you don't know it, start. If you don't know your herbs, get to know your local or online health practitioner, someone like Tori, right? Get to know, like I'm learning to garden with a community of, elders who already know it, so it's very small, like, hey, Errity, here's the garden, and here, eat some of it and water the plants for us. I'm like, got it.
Can do that.
I'm on it. I know how to water plants. Good. I can feed the horses. Thank you. I can do the simple things. So even if it's just starting small. So I guess I have a question for you too. If you were to tell people, a couple ways to start small, to start owning their own health or taking care of themselves, what would you suggest or recommend for those first couple of baby steps?
Yeah, absolutely. So honestly, where I always start is with diet. So something that we might not enjoy hearing, but it is very honest and true, is that our diet is everything. Food is thy medicine, and let your food be thy medicine in that way. And I really live by that. This is what kind of catalyzed my whole journey into holistic health and healing. But things like cutting back on sugar, as sugar is something that actually inhibits your immune system from working as soon as you ingest sugar, it will basically knock down your immune system for up to 6 hours. So it's really important. Yeah, it's crazy. And this is something, that we don't hear often, but it's important to cut back on sugar in our diet. And honestly, the best time to eat it is at night, so that if you need to ingest sugar, you're doing it at night. In Ayurvedic medicine, they say it's best to eat a little bit of sugar before your dinner, just a little bit of sweetness before your dinner. I know we are all taught not to eat dessert first, but it can be more supportive of your immune system to eat that sugar if you're craving it towards the end of the day, so that if you're, trying to preserve your immune system, that it gets a little knocked down at night when you're sleeping, rather than when, say, in the morning, if you like to ingest cereal or other sugary sweets in the morning, and then having your immune system compromised throughout the day while you are out and about. So it is best to try to cut back on your sugar content, and do so at night rather than early in the morning, especially if you are like a typical like coffee drinker with cream and sugar and things like that. It's just good to be aware that cutting back on refined white sugar is very important. And then a few other little tips and tricks are including as many herbs as possible into your diet. And what this means is cooking with herbs. So include a whole bunch of oregano, basil, thyme, cumin, cinnamon. I even put nettle, stinging nettle, in like so many of my dishes. It's very easy to hide with like other herbs like oregano and basil. But including those types of things, turmeric, ginger, how can I miss those? Lemon, things like that. Just including those in all of the meals that you cook at home will help increase your immune system. Since our immune system is more than just one thing in our body, what it does is just supports the entire body, which is my line of work, is ensuring that your whole body is supported. So I would definitely suggest doing at least those two things to get started, and refraining from a lot of like fried foods and unhealthy fats, and increasing the amount of healthy fats that you're ingesting on a daily basis.
Gosh, that's so thorough. And I love how you keep it simple. Like people can just include it in their meals, I know I use tons of herbs and veggies and stuff in my smoothies. You think my son, most kids at that age are not going to eat all the things. I put it all in a smoothie. He doesn't even know it's there because there's peanut butter in there. And someone once said to me, they said, well, there's a lot of sugar content in peanut butter. I'm like, first of all, I get the best kind of peanut butter there is. But second of all, you want to try to give this 3-year-old a green smoothie? You go ahead and try. So I like how you're putting it, I know, right? Into like realistic, doable terms, something that is feasible for people. And I think that is really about starting small. And I know that Bradley had mentioned, where did he get a comment here? Oh, maybe take the time to strengthen your own strengths so that others can benefit from your contributions to the whole. Absolutely. And that's really what I'm speaking to, right? Like, I know my strengths are this shit. Like, I can have a conversation, I can do some readings, I can do some coaching. My strengths are not gardening. So I go to the people who know how to garden, and, they're helping support and teach me. And now at the end of the day, I think what you're alluding to, Bradley, is like everyone can kind of exchange with the gifts that they have, as opposed to feeling like they have to learn everything. And I think that's a phenomenal point, that we don't have to know it all. We don't have to do it all. And that's really the whole point of community. But the key here is supporting that community, because we see so much support to things like Walmart, Target, Amazon, and yet small businesses are drowning, ever since 2020, but, since forever, especially they didn't start out with a whole lot of capital, weren't born into a wealthy family. Guess what? They're trying to make this work. And then with 2022, maybe even, 2020 TOO, not that we've fast forwarded into the future, but now it might even be a greater challenge to survive as a small business. So the key here is supporting those who are going out there and doing this work. And I find so much of like complaints about things like Amazon or Target or big business, Or even someone was talking about OnlyFans, how it was like, you know, they weren't against it necessarily, but it kind of has become this big conglomerate, and it takes our power away in other ways. For those who are familiar with OnlyFans, I'm sure you can take some guesses. And it's like, at the end of the day, it's the consumer's responsibility. You know, we're the ones who are deciding to either go to Tori or support big business. You know, we're the ones who are deciding where we shop. You know, our money, our dollar is our vote. And at the end of the day, if we're spending all of our money at Amazon, and hey, I still do too, right? This is transformation in action, right? We're figuring it out. Maybe someone will discover a new kind of Amazon that is more local and that isn't supporting a billionaire. I don't know. I haven't experienced that yet. Haven't invented that yet. But when the guy shows up or the gal shows up, I'll be happy to support that. But I think in addition to what we're already doing, right? Maybe we do buy some things from Amazon. We can also be supporting our local businesses, even online practitioners. A lot of the people, coaches, healers, teachers, all the people who are sharing their services online. Let's put our money there. A lot of times those are tax breaks or whatever, right? You can write those things off. So why not support someone local? It's funny because you'll even when it comes to like investing and coaching, it's, you know, all that stuff is tax deductible, and yet people worry about it. It's like at the end of the day, you're supporting someone. It's not going to Amazon, and you're getting a break on your taxes. And if you're also self-employed, you want to lower that. So that's a whole other conversation, but I feel like there's so many ways we can really be supporting not only ourselves, but each other. And I think that's like the big shift that we're moving toward. I know Bradley had a question for you, Tori. Is one sugar better than another?
So in my work, I just suggest staying away from refined white sugar and using more natural sugar alternatives. So something that you can think of are things like monk fruit sugar, coconut sugar, really anything that is not refined white sugar. You can even use natural cane sugar. I know I buy natural cane sugar that I do believe comes from Florida. And that you can tell it's natural because it has a little bit of a brown color, but it's not brown sugar, if that makes sense. So it's just not like that bleached refined sugar that actually creates a lot of inflammation and therefore DISEs. You know.
I like you.
But basically, what that does is the basis of so many illnesses is inflammation. So it's very important to not, continuously take in things that are creating those inflamed states and therefore perpetuating diseases. But natural forms of sugar, honey, I honestly tell people to stray away from agave because that is something that is not natural. It is a man-made byproduct that is not the best for our bodies. Our bodies don't know how to recognize it, but we do know how to recognize honey. And I know for vegans, you might not be happy with me saying that if you are vegan, but it's true that agave is just very highly processed to get into a syrup form. So I suggest honey, monk fruit sugar, coconut sugar, natural cane sugar, anything like that. Just stray away from the like Domino sugar or whatever brands, But yeah, great question.
Hey, such a good answer. Thank you for being so thorough. Yeah, he says, thanks, Tori. Didn't know that about agave. Good to know. There was something so I have a question for you, Tori. So it's kind of funny because we talk about 2020 and all like these positive shifts, or at least opportunities that have come up as a result that might be outside of our comfort zone. Now, I'll share a personal story and then I have a question for you. So a personal story is this, and it's really funny because those who know me or follow me or go in my group or whatever, they've heard me talk about this before. But in 2020, because, I was single momming it alone for, well, I'm always single momming it alone, but I mean, not really going into work, not going out. Everything was closed, right? So you're just at home, and I was with a maybe 3/4-year-old the whole time. So all of that to say, giving myself excuses, LOL, I started consuming more sugar, right? That was sort of taking that place of that social connection. Dating stopped, social networks things stopped unless you were online. All that stuff came to an end. And so then I found myself, I gained like 8 pounds last year. And I'm not like too upset about it, but I also kind of had this side that's like, okay, maybe we should stop. And then so as you're sharing and you're talking about sugar being one of those primary key factors, and something that like I said, I've already kind of lingered around and known, but as I'm working toward letting that go, what might be when it, sometimes you just give something up cold turkey, and I've done that plenty of times in my life, that can be easy for me, but that's really me forcing it and using my strong will. And I can, and I have, that's how I've accomplished most things in my life until the past few years. However, what might be like a gentle way? So if someone is used to consuming like sweet tea, or maybe they do have a sweet tooth, like I know my sister's family, they always have a cake or brownies or cookies after dinner. Now at my little treat, what I consider a treat is a Pepsi, which I didn't drink soda most of my life. So if someone is in that pattern, what might be like the first step, baby step, a gentle way? They might shift into something new as opposed to like cold turkey and white knuckling your way through it.
I love, love, love that question. So thank you for that, Errity. Because in my work, I always say I lovingly guide you along this journey. And we're not like white knuckling it through. We're not making you like take one for the team and really just strive through. What I do is I slowly implement like decreasing things like coffee or sugar or anything that isn't serving us, even if it is like your favorite thing is fried food, lovingly like stepping away from that. So something that I often offer to people is consuming whatever your thing is. For me, it's coffee. I love the taste. I can't kick it. So what I do is I basically make a ritual around my morning coffee, and I now mix it with cacao, so my cacao coffee, but making a loving ritual of drinking whatever drink it is. So drinking your Pepsi, making it a ritual of treating yourself, of knowing like, okay, this is my gift to myself. I'm gonna savor every sip. I'm not gonna be distracted or be on my phone as I'm drinking it, because what that does is kind of takes away that connection and that enjoyment of it. As like if you're being present with something, you need to be present with it. So if you want to say eat a donut once a week, make a ritual out of it where you kind of like set yourself up and you go ahead and eat that donut, but you're not taking care of the kids at that point. You're not running around trying to message people back or do chores as you take a bite and then do another chore and come back. What you're doing is being present with the thing that you love so deeply so that you can really enjoy it. And what that does with time, as you continue to cut back on whatever it is you're attempting to cut back on, is your body will naturally not want as much of it. So I went from drinking like 3 cups of coffee a day down to 1. And that's just by doing this in a ritualistic manner rather than just like being on my phone and messaging people back and chugging down a cup. So it's very important to almost make a ritual out of it for yourself, because naturally your body will then be like, I don't need this whole donut, or I don't even need this whole can of soda. And it's a natural process and a very loving process to honor what you love, but make sure that you're not over consuming those things that you love.
Gosh, that's such a wholehearted, beautiful way of doing it, right? With love, like you said, doing with love, with spaciousness, almost like with devotion even, and with allowing, with presence. And I feel like that goes for pretty much anything when you're talking about unconsciousness, and whether it's, like you said, whatever our drug of choice is, whether it's sugar or coffee, whether it's sex. I'm like, can I say that? I don't know. We'll get censored anymore. If you're doing it unconsciously, you're going to be ravenous. Give me all the things. I need my next girl or whatever, whatever it is. Because I'm thinking of like a dude who might be ravenous. Girls can be ravenous too. I think we've all been there. Very good. Full support, full support. But here's the thing, like you said, it's that unconsciousness piece that once you're aware of it and you are present, even if it's a partner in bed or if it's like your coffee or your soda or whatever, that of course you're going to be satiated, and it's such a natural way, and that over time it would make sense. It would make perfect sense that then you would have just enough, like we talked about yesterday, just enough, and you wouldn't be just like guzzling it down, and then you're like, oh crap, I just drink this whole thing or whatever it is. I just
Yeah.
had 6 cups of coffee, you
Yep.
know? So I
Yep.
love that you talked about that, just something so simple, bringing consciousness to it. How
And yeah,
precious.
it's as easy as that. And it might seem like a difficult thing to start, but honestly, when you make it a routine, it really is just like this very loving, inviting spaciousness that you create within your life. And it's a nice little ritual that you get to treat yourself with, whether daily or weekly or whatever feels right.
Yes, and not making it wrong. I love that too. And that goes for anything. Like even earlier when we were talking about like, putting our money in Amazon or whatever it is, or whatever it is. We don't have to make it wrong and have the self-judgment or I don't know how to shoot a gun or plant food and what if the world ends and what am I going to do? It's like we don't have to hate on ourselves or judge ourselves or make anything wrong. It's just a matter of letting things be as they are and working toward the new normal, working toward the new vision. I know a lot of people talk about sort of the life's journey is like the conditioning kind of falling away and like the layers things leaving, and then over time you find your true self, and I wholeheartedly agree with that. I also think the oftentimes how we tend to support the falling away is by sort of like you're talking about, like lovingly journeying into something new, and naturally the old stuff falls away versus having to white knuckle ourselves through it. So I just love that you talked about that. No judgment, not making yourself wrong, and actually just taking better care of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
I've had so many people that like want to white knuckle it through, and I'm like, is that sustainable? And the answer is always no. It's really not, unless you need to make a dire health change so that you don't have, or make way towards diabetes or other things like that. Like that's like a whole nother topic, but it is important to lovingly guide yourself through something rather than like, let's do this kind of deal.
Right. Yeah, like you said, it's not sustainable, regardless of what
Yep.
change it is. And even if it is, at some level, you're resisting it. And you're requiring so much energy of yourself to push it away and repress it, that it's actually causing you maybe even more harm than good. Having let it go, but pushing against this urge to have it, you very well maybe bring your immune system down anyway. Which actually brings me to the other thing I wanted to make sure we talk about, which is whole body health, because it's like the old paradigm of health obviously was, specific to the physical body, but I feel like we're entering an age and an era where we're also talking about our energetic health. And so much of our disease, our illness, of course, our sadness or depression, things like that is tied to our energetic health as opposed to our physical health. Now, I think it all works together. Ultimately, it's all interrelated. But, that's why I even love your work so much, because you're touching on all the areas. If someone is just eating healthy, I don't know that, like, okay, here's a good example. We can look at someone who's 60. We've assumed, oh my God, they bicycle, they do yoga, they're vegan, right? They're going to live forever, but then they die of cancer. And we're like, how in the hell does that happen? Emotions, energy, there's some kind of upset in the energetic health that hasn't been addressed that then manifests itself in some physical illness or disease or whatever. So I don't know if you wanted to talk about that at all, but that was something that I was thinking about, like in terms of whole body health. Like we're moving into an era where we care about our energetic health too, and we're doing, whether it's Reiki or shamanic work or whatever, doing our energy clearings, we're finding ways to support that too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I honestly, this is like what I love to talk about is the whole system. So not only the physical, because yes, you can take care of the physical, but what is the mental layers? What is coming up within your mindset? What is your defaults that you fall into? And then when it comes to your energetic body, we often forget that our energetic body literally expands 20 feet out from us. So we have a whole big bubble around us that can be affected by not only the food we eat, but the things we read, the things we watch, the people we're around, literally anything that we surround ourselves with. So if you are living in a space that, isn't promoting like good feelings or promoting health for you, if you are living in a city that has really bad air, even if you do all the good things, you're still susceptible to diseases. So you need to ensure that you're taking care of yourself in those ways, like taking care of your respiratory system and things like that, but really just supporting the entirety of you, because you are so much more than your physical body. And we do often forget this in today's day and age, as we were never taught about our energetic body. This is something that we've had to learn on our own, most likely, or maybe we're getting introduced to it now. But in yogic philosophy, we talk about the koshas. You might have learned these in your training as well, Errity. But basically, the koshas are the layers of our being. So we have like our physical layer, then we have our mental layer, and then we have our emotional layer, our environmental layer, like all these different layers of ourselves. But all in all, it's so much more than what you eat. Yes, super duper important to eat well and nourish your body in ways that support you fully. But if you are constantly watching the news, which is FEAR, propaganda, you're basically then consuming all of that. So basically, you're eating a whole bowl of fear, and your body is taking that in. And so often our nervous systems are overloaded and overwhelmed due to all the stimuli that we're taking in, because it is the digital era. And then we don't realize how this affects us mentally or physically. So those things that you're taking in from perhaps the news could actually create a cancerous condition within your body, because those fears are in your aura, or your field of energy, for a better term. But all in all, it is important to know what kind of air you're breathing, how good of quality the air is, and if it's not good quality in your area, get an air purifier. What's the quality of the water you're drinking? Are you charging it up that with like good loving energy, or are you drinking tap water that has all these chemicals in it? It really is just so much more than nourishing our physical body, and it's something that is, I think, people are more so waking up to now, because you're right, there are people that do all the right things and then they realize that they have cancer or like fibromyalgia and things like that. And a lot of the times it's just because we're not paying attention to the other things we're putting ourselves around. So if someone has bad energy, you are drawn to get away from them for a reason. Your body doesn't want to be there. Your energetic field doesn't want to be there. But I love that you touched upon that, because it's absolutely true and dire to recognize to be truly healthy.
Totally. And I think it's important to mention too, for people who might be watching and being like, well, shit, I got a lot of work to do. Because that's what I'm saying. I'm like, shit, I don't know what my air is. I mean, I hope to God it's all right. you know?
Yep.
And in Florida, there's mold everywhere. It's like you can't even get around or away from that. But it's like, recognizing too, it's a journey. This gets to be fun. It gets to be playful. We get to learn, like you're saying, like having met Tori and the way we interact, slowly learning things. And I've had the opportunity to explore some of her products. It's an exploration. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to have it all right now. And you don't have to know it all or do it all. It's just letting yourself explore. And it's going to be the journey and the work of your life, really. I mean, I feel like that's what we're here for, is to sort of pick up all the nuggets along the way and see what happens. And that's pretty much it. We're not ever going to be guaranteed any particular health or ensure that, we end up not dying from disease. I hope that it's all natural for all of us. I hope we all die naturally in our sleep someday, long time from now. Wouldn't that be great? But I don't ever want people to think it's like this arduous thing, or it's like they have to work toward this outcome. Like Tori talked about earlier, it gets to be so loving, and you just get to bring love to it and consciousness, and really just about taking care of yourself. And I'm glad you're giving us specific examples too, as to how we can do that, right? Because we can talk sort of like philosophically, but if people don't know how to apply it, then it's not as relevant. Now, Bradley, I know you said it's just a frequency, a certain vibrational energy. Yes, totally. And I think we would both agree with you on that. And I think part of actually kind of segues into what I was saying, which is, we have to make that practical for people. we don't yet have. Only recently have I heard of, and I don't know who I'm shouting out, but I guess it's somebody, someone I'm sure on here does Healy, sells Healy, whatever, where it's that energetic device that can read your frequency and support you to maintain certain frequencies. So excellent. We're finally moving into that technology. But up until now, we didn't have access to that. We didn't have a way to measure our vibration. So I think sometimes using some of this esoteric or sort of almost mysterious language, which, hey, I use all the time. I mean, this is my world and my life, and I get it. But I think, making sure we pair that with what does that look like tangibly? What does that look like physically? How do we actually support that frequency? And it's funny though, because this morning as I was getting ready, knowing I was going to talk to you, Tori, I was thinking of like the future of, how right now people go to the corner to buy drugs. This is really random. I don't know why this is coming up. Or a guy will come up to a girl at a bar and to pick, to offer a pickup line. I was like, what if the new thing is like, hey girl, you want to move some energy? Or like, you go to the street corner and you're like, hey, you got anything that's going to help me move some energy? So I sure hope that we end up though getting to that place. I know in our futures, that's like a real thing. You're actually going to seek out, moving energy and getting into this like esoteric sort of mysterious world, which it isn't, right? It's just what we are. But it's like where we can actually, like, the dude on the street corner is like, yeah, dude, I got this. I know how to do some Reiki in the back or whatever it is, right? I don't know. But like that's what people are seeking out. Wouldn't that be crazy cool if we entered a world or a future where everyone is aware of it? That's what they know they need to do. Because all ultimately there's a lot of different ways to do it, but it's moving energy. That's it.
And I think it's really funny that you mentioned that because when I traveled to Peru a few years back, they literally have people with like little baby microphones and a cart of herbs, and they also have like other healers that are on the corners of the streets. But when you go into their markets, like their open markets, they're amazing, by the way. Like there's these people like, what do you need? I do not speak Spanish, so I'm not even going to try, but they're like, basically, what do you need? We can heal you. Diabetes, arthritis, what do you need? And they're there literally just like delving out, mixing herbs in public for the community. And it was literally like, I get chills thinking about it now because it is something that happens in other parts of the world, but we in the United States just don't honor natural very often, unfortunately, and that's due to the medical system kind of degrading this work, even though all medications are based off of different constituents of plants. And we often forget that. And there's, like basically like Tylenol and things like that. Those come from plants. That derivative comes from plants. And then we're using something that is a constituent and not in its whole. Therefore, that's why it creates problems and side effects. But nature creates things in its entirety so that you don't have those side effects and things like that. So it's just really beautiful that you mentioned that, because that is how it is in a lot of parts, at least in South and Central America that I visited, but in the States, not so much.
Right. Wow. And I had no idea, and that's just my Western-minded ignorance. And, unfortunately, so many of us have that. But I love hearing that that's a reality. And then to know that our government, too, the irony of it is our government or whoever, however, researchers, it doesn't matter, medical professionals, they all say, just catch up with the comments here. They say things like, oh, this one isn't FDA approved, or this one hasn't been researched to be FDA approved, all this stuff. Well, yeah, it hasn't been researched because you don't fund the studies. You just want the stuff that can make money, that's man-made. So it's like, yeah, I get what you're saying. It hasn't been studied. That's probably true. And that would be great if we had some studies to back this up. And yet nobody's going to be doing that because they can't make their buck off of it. Now, when they find a way, like Tylenol or these other things, to make a buck, then they will, and then they'll study it. Someone will sponsor that, someone will fund that study, and then we'll have some results. But I think it's such like a, the irony of it all, like, oh, we require it to be studied, but there's no funding for your study. So you know what? Just forget it all. Just forget all of that, those herbs or natural health products or whatever it is. And I know recently they were even talking about, I forgot what it was. Maybe it was it a number of herbs? It was 2019 or 2020 where they were talking about like even, not allowing any of it, on grocery store shelves and stuff like that. So that's a whole other conversation. But I think it's important to mention that a lot of what we are told or a lot of what we see out there isn't really accurate. I know a lot of people are all science, science. Unfortunately, science is as political as anything else, and it essentially, I think it has become something that's really only, you have to look at the larger context. It's only valuable to a certain degree, because you also have to recognize, who's funding the study. Also, will they allow alternative studies or studies with alternative results to enter a journal? Because people want it to be, what do they call that? Peer reviewed. It's been so many years since I've been doing because I was in science for years and years. You want to know why I didn't stay in academia, which I'm like shocked that, this is where I ended up after getting 2 master's degrees and everything else. It was because of this, because I saw that, oh, wait, I can't actually explore the stuff I want. And even if I did, this journal can just say no because they don't like the results that came from my study. They don't have to publish it. And they won't if it doesn't align with the mainstream message, whatever it is they're trying to get across. I also found that almost all of the people on the journal boards were white males. And so I was like, the likelihood that they're even saying yes to the diverse number of research questions, research studies, the results, I mean, it's highly unlikely. And then, so what do you see? You see, again, primarily white male authored studies with more or less, I would say, biased results as a result. And that's all we're seeing in these journals. But then everyone else is like, it has to be from science. And it's like, you guys have no idea. Maybe go on the other side of it, because everyone says, oh, do your research and stuff. No, how about you just go do it, go through the schooling, go get your degree, and then start your research study and participate. You can see what's happening behind closed doors. It's highly political. Whoever funds it, that matters. Whoever's on that board, that's what matters. It's not as easy as 1, 2, 3 like people think it is. So I know that's like sort of a side tangent, but I think it's such an important topic, especially in the era of 2020, where everyone got so up on this like science, like the hill that they're going to die on. And it's like, but do you have any idea what you're talking about? Like, did you actually participate in anything, or are you just saying that? So, random side note I thought we would touch on.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're so right about that. Like I actually started off college on a pre-med bio and psych track because I wanted to be an OBGYN. And I found quickly that all they wanted to talk about was medications. And that was even in my first year of study. So it's just wild how they don't even really talk about any natural ways, but what they do with a lot of different plants, just so people have a little idea, a little bit more of an idea about them, is they take a plant and they extract constituents. So every plant has multiple chemical constituents to it that can offer healing, or, some of them offer harm, and that's why we need to be careful with wildcrafting or foraging. But basically, what they do, say for example, comfrey or comfrey. This is something that they used to use a lot. Like poor people used to go forage for this because it's very high in iron. It's really good for you. And what happened was some people were getting liver poisoning from it. And that was because they were eating copious amounts. Like really poor people that couldn't afford really any food would go out and get this. It's basically like a natural form of kale that you can just pluck from your garden or from your your land. And they realized that this chemical constituent called allantoin was actually creating liver damage. But the FDA now marked comfrey or comfrey as unsafe and not allowed to be digested. But it is one of the most powerful herbs to heal broken bones in the human body. So it's really just interesting how they decided to omit an entire plant for this one constituent that it contains. And when you consume it, whether you eat it or drink it in tea form on a semi-regular basis and not all the time, it is okay for you to do. But since they, pulled out that one chemical, they said it was unsafe because it automatically causes liver damage. So that's how they do these studies, and that's why it's important to know that it's actually not true that it's completely unsafe. There's ways around it. Mm-hmm. But you're so right. They are all biased, and they want to make it seem as though natural medicines are not okay or safe.
Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, they have those commercials This will cause everything but death. Please buy it. So
Or
they give
sometimes
us
death.
right, or sometimes death. Exactly. So you might die. You might be vomiting, diarrhea, any number of things, liver failure, kidney failure also. But we've approved this, but we're not going to approve that plant. I'm really concerned about that one plant because it's natural. No one can make a buck off of it. And that's where you start. That's where it's like you have to open your mind and you can't just rely on the conditioning, everything we've been taught and told, no matter what it is, whether it's about health only looks like this or it only matters, the pills that you take or whatever. We have all this mainstream messaging out there. And I don't think, well, I mean, I know it doesn't tell the full picture for health. So I'm so glad we were able to touch on all of these things. We're here at the tail end. Was there anything else that you wanted to make sure that we talk about before we end, or do you feel pretty good? And have any final questions for us?
Yeah, let us know any final questions. And just to give you guys an idea of some immune supporting herbs, and some nervous system supporting herbs, I just want to list off a few just in case you are in need of this. And always feel free to reach out if you need some more support. But a few different immune supporting herbs are elder, so elderberries, elder flowers, nettle, ginger, turmeric, peppermint, spearmint, orange peel, hibiscus, cayenne, cinnamon. There's literally so many. I could go on forever, but those are just a few. Rose hips are really good. Those are really tart though, so you'll need some honey if you use a tea out of that. And some nervous system supporting herbs are lavender, chamomile, skullcap, hops, St. John's wort, gotu-kola, ginkgo, valerian, hops, California poppy. Once again, there's so many different things that you can use to support yourself. So just know that there's answers and you can receive help in the ways that you need. And if you feel at a loss, if your, healthcare professionals aren't being of deep support to you and you kind of are at a standstill with treatments and don't know where to go, there's always someone you can reach out to, and it's gonna be holistic health practitioners or herbalists, things like that.
Yay. Well, thank you, Tori, for everything, for being here, for sharing so much with us, and these extra little goodies at the end. That way people can take notes or whatever, and then they have something to begin with, which I think is so important, having those practical steps. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It was an honor.
Absolutely. And thanks everyone who is watching. If you find you have any final questions or curiosities or whatever, obviously you can put them in the comments. Her and I can check back in later and get to you. I know I tend to have at least, a few questions thereafter, so we're happy to get to those. And then maybe we'll come on again and talk something else in the near future. Actually, I know we are. At the end of the month, we're talking about grounding sort of a lot of the spiritual awareness and like embracing emotions, the human experience and stuff. So we'll be chatting again in the near future, my friends.
Yes.
All right. Bye.
Bye. Have a great day.